Nothing like some grilled meat from the barbecue after a long day of scavenging. The dire wolf sure tastes good after it's been marinated in my special sauce. I should bottle it up and sell it to the traders. Delicious.
Sir, apologies for interrupting your dinner.
What?
Trader Rekt is trying to reach you on the comm system.
Alright, I'll be right there. Tell him to hold on to his hat.
Yes, sir. I will tell him to hold.
Computer, please patch him through.
Patching him through. Connecting.
Yes, Master Rekt.
A nickel ain't worth a dime anymore.
Is it always about money with you? I thought we were partnering up here.
Oh, I'll do business with you, long as you're not a thief.
I haven't stiffed you, unlike your failure with the base build. Anyway, good thing you called. I need an update on the farm. Is it ready? How's the food production? We're running low on food.
Well, there's always Shamway up the road you can try looting.
What? Now hold on with the snarky comments. That's it. I'm coming down to have a look myself. Man, I'm going to need to look for some alternative help soon. Computer, what's the status of old Betty?
A moment, Master. Verifying. Betty is fueled up and ready to go, sir.
Alright. Arm the perimeter defenses and keep things on lockdown until I'm back.
Yes, sir. All traps operational and coming online. Have a pleasant drive.
You better not be messing up my farm as well. After his poor showing with the base build, I'm not sure what to expect. What the? This is my farm, not Joel's. If he thinks he can claim it for himself, I'll see his 44 and race it with my AK-47. Rekt?
I've been expecting you.
I'm sure you say that to everyone, but this looks great.
Anything you like?
Yeah, everything. I mean, you really seem to have gone through this time. But I'm not really a fan of your helpers. They look a little bit hungry, and I doubt they're going to eat the potatoes here. Alright, so while Rekt and his boys here tend to the farming needs, it's up to me to give you an introduction and a walkthrough of farming in 7 Days to Die. Note that of course this applies to Alpha 16, and while things in general remain the same, they do get tweaked and changed every so often across the game version. First of all, let's start with tree farming, which is the easiest farm you can make. There are 3 types of tree seeds. You have the common pine seed, which obviously creates a pine tree. You have the maple tree, and you also have the pretty beautiful blue spruce tree. They all work the same way. You grab a seed, you place it down in dirt where it will grow. Main thing to note though is that you need to space them out in recent alphas. You can't have any more tree walls, which you could in some previous alphas. But it's pretty easy. You just measure out 1, 2, 3, and the next one is workable. You see here on the third one I cannot place, but on this one I can. So place it down, and that's it. Trees take about 2 to 3 days to grow to full size, during which time the model changes from a small sapling and it ends up in a fully grown tree. Do make sure that you don't start chopping it midway, because that will halt its growth permanently. It's been noted in previous alphas that tilling the ground will increase wood yield. Although as of Alpha 16, I have not been able to replicate this because it seems that the max 1200 hit points affects all trees regardless of whether it's on tilled ground or not. An early game tree farm on top of your building your POI can be very beneficial. It'll give you easy close access to wood during the night hours without venturing out. All you need is some dirt to craft ground blocks with, and place it down and put the seeds on, and that's it. Do note that you can plant the tree seeds on other types of ground as well, such as in deserts and snow biomes. However, planting on some of these means that they will not reach their full maturity. If you look here, I placed it down on burnt and plains, etc. and they're growing to their full size. But you see here on sod, it's not. It will never grow to the full size. It'll always be at maximum 900. Whereas with other ones, you have 1200. So do keep that in mind as well when you're deciding which ground you're going to place down. Next, let's move on to the ground blocks that you want to use for the other farms. There are plenty of ground blocks, but you want to farm on the main 4 types. Those being the forest ground, you have the grassy ground, you have the plains. You can also farm on the burnt, and you have sod. Sod is a little bit of a peculiar beast. It requires plant fiber to craft, in addition to dirt fragments. And once you place it down, you can actually pick it up again. And why is that? Well, it's basically a placeable and replaceable block for a while until it hardens. So if you look at the rest of them, I cannot pick them up because it is hardened already. But it's good for building, because if you misplace something, you just pick it up. Whereas with the rest of them, you obviously have to dig them away. You'll notice that on the 4 ground types here, grass will start growing. So you'll see grass here, you'll see grass here on the plains, but not on the sod or the burning. And that's a pretty good indicator that it's a good place to farm. It means it's fertile ground, well, relatively fertile. Now, when it comes to farming, you can place seeds on any ground, and it will grow. But there's a bit of a problem. Normal ground that you plant on will just give you 1 item back. So here's 1 corn that I planted on just regular ground. So 1 seed become 1 corn, and 1 corn become 1 seed. So basically 1 for 1, which is pretty useless. And this is where the gardening hoe comes into play. It can be found or can be crafted, and with it you can till the ground, making it more fertile for growth. Generally, this means that the growth will increase from 1 to 2, but it also depends on which crop it is. Corn, for instance, goes from 1 to 3. So that makes it a lot more interesting to be farming on just till ground. So you craft the hoe from 16 forged iron and 10 wood. So here we have 3 ground. And to till it, you basically just right click, and you see it changes color. And this one means it's tilled, and it will give an increased yield. If you want to make the ground even more fertile, you need to find or mix your own fertilizer. This can be done in the concrete mixer, which is fertilizer here, or in the chemistry station. And you have the fertilizer as well. They take slightly different ingredients. They take a fair while to produce, but in the long run, it's very worth it, as it pretty much doubles the yield once again compared to tilled earth. And that saves you a lot of time when farming. You'll see as you saw in the concrete mixer, it requires rotting flesh. If you look in the chemistry station, it takes human turd. So the ingredients are slightly different, so you want to make sure that if you see any turds, just bring them. If you see any rotten flesh, just bring them as well. One notable difference is that it takes less nitrate in the chemistry station, and that might be useful to know if you're a bit short on nitrate. It's also a little bit faster to cook it up in the chemistry station, but that's not a major deal. It does cost a little bit of fuel, whereas in the concrete mixer, it's effectively free. So how do you then fertilize? Well, this is regular ground. You right click once with the hoe and you'll till it. If you have fertilizer on you and you right click again, it'll become fertilized. You'll see it's this slightly white blotchy type, and this means it's fertilized. So let's have a look at the different crops that you can farm, as well as their yield on regular versus tilled and fertilized. So you look at the potato. It'll give you 1 on regular ground. It'll give you 2 on tilled, but it'll give you a whole 4 on fertilized ground. Considering potato is a key to making delicious and health-boosting meat stew, always farm potatoes. Then we have the corn, which is probably one of the most important things to farm. Beyond being a key ingredient in meat stews or vegetable stews, it's also made into cornmeal. And the cornmeal can be made into quite a lot of different things, such as grain alcohol and fuel. Its yield is 135, so tilling and fertilizing makes sense. If you're going to make large areas of corn, you might just till it and save the fertilizer for something like for the hops or for the potato. Next we have goldenrod. You make it into paint, or you boil it to make tea, and that's a useful stamina boosting. And early game, having goldenrod flowers and making tea is very good for when you run around and you do mining. We also have the chrysanthemum, which beyond just making the cooling tea, which gives you a stamina boost and it cools you down, you also make paint from it. And you also make, let me see if I can get actually here, chrysanthemum. You see the recipe, you can actually make herbal antibiotics from it as well once you've read that book. Not that I normally use it, because I always find a lot of regular antibiotics, but it might be useful at some point. Coffee is another great crop to be grown. Early on, before you can make beer or grain alcohol, it will both make you or keep you warm, but it will help you regenerate stamina when you're running or you're mining, and that can be really, really helpful, especially if you have to run long distances and you want to make sure you get there without having to pause all the time. Blueberries. You can make them into pie, juice, herbal antibiotics, but I very rarely use them. I mean, I find them and I pick them up and I eat them once in a while, but you know, if you're looking at the blueberries and you're looking at the recipes, nothing is really interesting. I mean, again, herbal antibiotics is not, snowberry juice is not, and you know, the rest, you know, pie, you know, now with no smell in the alpha 16, it makes less sense to carry around vegetarian food. Now the hops flower, which you can buy at the traders, and once you've read the beer recipe, which is also at the traders, is really great for making stamina boosting beer. It takes a fair bit of resources to make beer, so you have to have a steady supply of the hops flower in order to keep your beer cooler stocked. And beyond the stamina regeneration, it gives you a nice buzz which makes you immune to zombie stunning, and that's really useful for when you're fighting melee. Obviously, you can use the grain alcohol for the same, but you know, it's up to you whether you like to drink the beer or you like to drink the harsh alcohol. Yucca Fruit. When I run around plains or deserts, I always pick up my Yucca Fruit. It gives you some fullness, gives you some stamina, and you can make it into a yucca juice. And it's the only real drink that you only need the fruit and the empty jars. You don't need to cook it. So it's very useful to just pick it and make it as you run along. And doesn't even require ice to keep you cool. Aloe vera plant is another somewhat underestimated plant that you can both find and grow. So if you look at the recipes, you can make the aloe vera cream. So what's so special about the aloe vera cream? Well, let's look at it here. It'll give you a 10 health healing instantly. So if you farm a lot of the aloe vera, you can basically give yourself instant heals. And of course, you also craft them into the first aid bandages, which again is very nice before you can find the first aid kits. So always try to keep a good supply of aloe vera plants as well. Cotton almost speaks for itself. You need cotton for a lot of different things. Normally you can find a lot of cloth around, but there are some things that you require the actual cotton plant for, such as making the beds, making the chair, making the paint, or making the mini bike seats. So I always make sure I do have at least a medium-sized farm of cotton, so I can just pick it, make my bandages, first aid kits, and whatever else I want to craft. Now we come to the mushrooms, and mushrooms are a little bit peculiar. Most of the plants, except for the mushroom, requires light in order to thrive. In general, a block which is within a 9 distance to a block which has direct sunlight, meaning it's open to the sky, can be farmed on. It doesn't matter whether it's on the surface or down on the bedrock, as long as it's within 9 blocks of a block that is hit by sunlight, it will grow. Now, obviously you don't want to have an opening for zombie to fall in through, so you'll generally be covering it up. If you put on normal glass, it'll decrease the sun intensity by 1, which means within 8. If you instead use the bulletproof glass, which obviously has a lot more health points, the sun intensity is decreased by 2, which means 7 blocks within that block that is hit by sunlight, which is still quite a lot. So which means that you can pretty easily make a nice underground farm, even if you just have some sun shafts down. So let me show you a simple underground farm that I made here. And the reason I put a ladder and a hatch over here is that the hatches actually let sunlight through. And I wanted to show that the only sunlight that we have here is coming through the glass panes. And you'll see we have the normal ground here, which gives 1. We have the till ground, 2. And we have the fertilized ground, which gives 4. So it's exactly the same as on the surface, but it's obviously on the ground. And you could have this, down at bedrock, or you could have it, wherever, as long as there is sun coming down through some glass panes, it will be enough to keep it growing. So that can be very useful. Now with the bulletproof glass, you can have a nice farm, and it's not going to just break like the normal glass would do previously. As a funny side item, while building this, it was raining, and the rain actually goes through the glass blocks here. And I checked it up, and it's actually one of the known bugs for Alpha 16. So you still get wet, and depending on how you stand, if you're standing in the middle, you might not, but you get wet standing under here. So that's a little bit of a peculiar way. So we've now covered tree farming. We've covered how to till and fertilize and how to make fertilizer. We've covered the different crops and how much they grow. And with that, we're coming to the end of the farming tutorial. I hope it's been educational. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know your farming experience in the comment section below. Computer, end video.
Yes, Master. Video will now end. Goodbye.